Did you know that most women in their 40s and 50s say they'd love to run their own business? And many already have a clear idea of what that could be. But around 8 in 10 never actually take the first step because of money worries, fear of failure, and a lack of confidence. Since my recent guest appearance on an episode of Beck Wilson's podcast Prime Time about my own transition into self-employment in my late 50s, I've been approached by a number of women who are considering their own move into solo business. And from these conversations and from my own experience, I know there's a lot to learn about getting started in business. Today, I'm joined by Bambi Price, who has spent years working with mature age entrepreneurs through her work at Seniorpreneurs and War on Wasted Talent. Bambi started her own business at 55 and has since founded several companies dedicated to helping people start businesses later in life. So today, I really want to draw on Bambi's experience to help women understand what's going on, to know what the opportunities are and what to watch out for. Bambi, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks, Sue.
Bambi, before we get into the bigger trends and research and some of the detail, I'd love to start with you. What was your journey that led you to focus on people starting businesses later in life?
So I'd always been in technology. I started my life as a developer and then went on to an analyst and a project manager, ended up being a COO, and then ended up running an Oracle-based consultancy of about 50 people. And that was great. And then for various reasons, I decided to leave that. I mean, one of them was hugely, I was traveling every month overseas, and by the time I get to the airport, my stomach would be churning. And I could see there was an issue with my mother and older people her age coping with calls online, and the banks, everything was moving online then. So this was around 2014. And so we started an organisation to work with aged care organisations to go in and show people how to go and actually use their technology. And then someone at the Australian Computer Society said, can you come and talk about being over 50 and starting a business? And I said, well, I can, but why would anyone care? You know, I've just got to that point where I feel like I've got the skill sets. I know what I'm doing. And also I'd been through the whole, how hard can it be to start a business as opposed to one that was already up and running? So I went along and they had these two young guys talking, basically saying you couldn't start a business when you're old. You could only do it when you were young. So you're thinking, what are they talking about? So I got up and spoke, and then I realised it was a massive problem. And at Swinburne University had actually done research around it with Professor Alex Maritz called Seniorpreneur. He was calling people seniorpreneurs. And I was doing some work with Swinburne at the time, so I reached out and spoke to him. And so we decided to start this group called Seniorpreneurs. So we advertised it on Meetup, thinking we'd get no one. And we had like 75 people came to our first event. So we were shocked. And so we ran it for quite a few years. I learnt a lot because this was really my first not-for-profit. I'd never run a not-for-profit before. That was an eye-opener for me. But we ended up with about 4,000 members between Adelaide, Melbourne and Sydney. What the one thing I did take away from that was there were a lot of people who wanted to start a business, some through want, so a lot through necessity, and they just didn't know how to go about it. Yeah. And they were drawing down on their super, and they didn't know if they needed to register for GST, you know, so it was quite an eye-opener.
And so from this vantage point that you had of work, you know, having thousands of members, what could you see in the trends and how common it was for people over 50 or 55 to be starting businesses or going into self-employment?
It was actually quite substantial. We spoke to many, many more than that. And a lot of people came back and said they weren't game enough to leave where they were. They weren't necessarily happy doing what they were doing, but they felt that because they were in their early, mid, late 50s that they couldn't leave.
Yeah, I was going to say, you and I had the great fortune of starting businesses by choice, and it's not always the case. I think even for those women who have a seed of an idea, if they have a choice about exploring that, it's a different outcome to I'm suddenly unemployed and I need to, do something to bring in an income.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and there's a different kind of element to or feel to that. Have you seen a distinction in terms of how those women fare in this small business journey?
They're a lot more circumspect. They're a lot more cautious. They want to make sure that they've done as much research and everything as they can before they take the leap.
Yeah.
I think women always underestimate themselves. I mean, it's, a woman can know something 110% and she'll say she's not sure. A guy will know it. Not that there's anything wrong with men, 50, 60%, and they'll say they're an expert. So,
yeah,
there's that side. Women will take their time to start. Men will jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. I find that fascinating. And I know from my own experience early on when I showed up to a local business network and I was working alongside some others who were a bit further ahead than me in the business development journey. And I was kind of agonizing over everything. And the feedback from one of the group was, I think you don't appreciate how much you already know and what you already bring to the table from your other work experience. What it did was make me go away and really examine some of my thinking and some of the things about what I could and did bring to the table. But so from your experience, so we've talked about confidence. Are there other things that sort of stop women from stepping into their own business after 50?
I think, most people have fear of failure, but I think women have it more. I don't. That's why I think they take so long to make sure they've got everything organised and everything done.
So for someone who recognises that sort of self-doubt as they're setting off on the journey, what would you suggest to them about shifting the self-doubt? One or two practical things.
Yeah, they're probably not going to get rid of it. What I would recommend is if you're looking to start a business, obviously family and friends are great supporters, but they're supporters. So they'll probably love everything you're going to do. You need to talk to people who don't know anything about you and ask them if they think that what you're starting is actually something that will be of benefit for them and something they'll pay for. That's the other thing. People often say, do you think this is a good idea? And people will say yes. But if you say to them, will you pay for it? They might go, with the economy, the way it is today, I'd love it in my top 10, but it's not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's that validation and having the confidence to get that validation.
Yeah. So you're really talking there about the early stage. Is my idea a good one?
Exactly.
Testing it in the market by, going to your informal panel of advisors to.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
To get their feedback.
But, and as much as family and friends are great, don't ask them. We can ask them, but don't do it solely and do it outside your comfort zone. And look, if you can't do that, then starting a business is probably going to be quite difficult for you. So if you can do that one
why
thing.
do you say that? Tell us more about that idea.
I think if you don't have enough confidence in your idea that you can go out and talk to others who may potentially buy your product or service, then it's going to be very hard for you to promote your own business out there because you won't feel like it's good enough. So you could have developed the Apple Mac, let's say you were Susie Jobs and you developed the Apple Mac. If you can't get it out there and have people love it and hate it, there was a mixed response, then it's going to be very hard for you to start a business.
So I love that, the needing to love it yourself and be prepared for others to love it and not love it.
And not love it. Exactly. You're never going to get, the 80-20 rule. If 80% are happy.
Yeah. So what was it like for you at the beginning when you were getting started with your business? Can you reflect on that?
It was terrifying because I had a business with 50 staff. So we'd have meetings, we'd organise things, we'd say what we're going to do, and others did things. And all of a sudden, I'd sit down, work out what I was going to do and go, oh, there's no one else.
Yes.
You know, even if there's a couple of you still got to do everything yourself.
Yeah.
And nowadays I'm quite used to that. But in the beginning, it was like, oh, okay, this is a different mindset altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that reflects my experience as well. And there were some things that I didn't really want to be doing that if I didn't do them, I wasn't going to move forward.
No, exactly. And, you know, if we were putting in tenders or something, you had people who wrote tenders.
Yeah.
But if you're doing your own business for going to apply for work and stuff, you've got to write it yourself. Now, obviously, the advent of AI, although that's a whole other discussion, understanding how to use it properly, has helped a lot of people, but it's hindering a lot of people as well.
Coincidentally, there was an article that came out in the Harvard Business Review today titled "Keep Self-Doubt at Bay When Starting a Business." And it's got a number of interesting suggestions. And if it's okay with you, I thought I might run through them before we move into talking about confidence is one thing, and then there are other business skills that we need and steps we have to take, and even in considering getting started. But I just want to run through these. So the first one they suggest is what they call name the signal. So when self-doubt shows up, treat it as a pattern, not as proof. So noticing when those feelings are arising, what they're attached to, and finding other words or phrases or ideas that can move you forward. And for me, that was something I did quite a bit of getting started, because I needed to, you know, like as you described, I was getting a lot of feedback that Flourish After 50 was a really good idea in terms of coaching and small group programs. And I wasn't sure whether it was whether it was going to fly and whether people would pay money for the things that I was offering. And those sort of self-doubts of, am I good enough? Can I do this? Did arise. So that keeping that mindset check, I think, was really important. The other one they suggest is borrowing perspective. So they say, don't let doubt compound in isolation. Get into a regular rhythm of conversations with others. So you touched on that in terms of getting feedback on your idea, and they're saying that that's a pattern or a rhythm that we should develop as we get into the business development strategy, so that the business development phase, so that we're continuing to engage with others and be part of a feedback loop, I guess. The other is they suggest shift the spotlight from, rather than focusing on yourself, to the mission of your work. And I don't know about you, but that was also really important for me. And I think it's the case with solopreneurs, because we feel we are our work.
Exactly.
There's only us. And so particularly if you're the service, you know, and that's the case for me, that you can get caught up in ideas about it being about you and whether you're good enough or not. But actually, if you think about it in terms of what you're offering and the value that that's providing or contributing to others, then you can shift out of a more negative mindset into a positive one. So I really liked that shifting perspective from self to the value that you're creating. What's the other one? So bank the wins. Pause to recognize progress, even if it's small. So this is about, particularly when you're just getting started and there's no clear signposts for how you're going, then noticing when there's you've been successful at something, no matter how small, then celebrating those as markers of your progress is really important. And then the last one, and I'd be interested in getting into this one a little bit, is about protecting your capacity. So this is the idea that our energy is precious, and so having rest and boundaries and recovery keep us clear thinking and holding good judgment. And that sometimes when we throw ourselves into something and we attach our worth to it, we can get really caught up in believing that I have to just keep working on this. And, let's face it, when you start your own business, it's an endless amount of work. But without having good boundaries around protecting your time and making sure that you rest, then it makes that job of turning up just a little bit harder. So there's some things. I'll put the links to that article in the show notes. But there's some additional ideas, I guess, about getting started and the things that can help you keep self-doubt at bay. So beyond self-doubt, there's a whole lot of things that need to be done to get ourselves ready. So before we spend any money or quit our jobs, what are the first couple of steps that we should think about taking before setting up a business?
Look at others that are doing things similar, or, anything you could associate with yourself, and look at what they're doing, and then realistically sit down and understand how well you are doing and how people can benefit from you. And that is a big step for people, though.
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting too. I did do that. I reached out to a couple of people in my area actually who were coaches and had conversations with them to find out what life looks like, because there was one thing, knowing that I was good at this kind of work, because I'd been doing mentoring for a number of years before I launched into coaching, and quite something else to do it as an ongoing proposition. And also knowing that coaching is part of the work, but the other part of the work is running the business, the promotion.
Exactly.
And all of the other things that help me get in front of potential clients. So
absolutely.
So I did a bit of a reality check with some other people to find out what did life look like in that business, so I could start to think in realistic ways about
exactly
what it might look like for me. Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got to sit down and work out it accurately as you can, how much you're going to need to start the business. Yeah. Like, are there startup costs? So, their capital expenditure, what's the operating expenditure? You've got to value your time. You've got to include your time in all those things, which a huge number of startups don't. And there was some stats came out years ago when we started Seniorpreneurs to say a lot of solo business owners only earn 75, not only, it's good, 75 to 90,000, because they just never factored their own time in. And so they end up working 7 days a week, 6 hours at 8 hours a day for $75,000 to $90,000 a year. And it's really hard. Yeah. So you've got to think of that, and you've got to work out, what software do I need? What do I need to run this business? Do I need a letterhead? Do I need, there's all those ancillary things that people don't even think about that take a long time. And what marketing do I need? Because if people don't know about you, they don't know where to come.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm aware that we're talking about this is really hard. And actually, I'm having a time of my life running my own business. And in fact, I run two businesses. So I don't want women listening to us to only think that it's hard work. So I guess what we're saying is be warned. And there are some things you can do to help set yourself up for success and make an informed decision about whether this is for you. And particularly that last point that you're making about the factoring in your time and working a lot of hours for not much money. I think a lot of us after 55 go, one of the things that we're looking for is flexibility and flexible lifestyles when we're moving into a business that's about our time and where we can turn that on and turn that off. And so losing that flexibility by working 70, 80 hours a week sounds like a nightmare to me.
Yeah, you're right. Once you understand, you've got to set it up properly and do some work. Running it is fun.
What have you enjoyed about running businesses?
Flexibility around my time, meeting different people, but I like being able to pick and choose. So, I've had a few people come and say to me, what about this? What about this business? And I think, you know what? I've done that before. I liked it at the time. I'm in a different phase of my life now and I'm just not interested in doing it. I like to stay in touch with people and see the benefit of what they're doing.
So I guess that's about seeing the impact of your work on the world. So to see those ripple effects of what you do for other people's lives.
I mean, you might here and there, but generally not.
Yeah.
You come, you go, you're in, you're out, you know.
Yeah. So when the client is much closer to you, then you have much more line of sight to those.
Absolutely. You
benefits.
feel like it's almost like you've got a vested interest. Well, you have got a vested interest in seeing them do well, and you like to see them do well. No, you know, and even people I've just met obviously online and have reached out to and have a quick chat with you. And, you know, I don't mind doing that because I'll learn something from them and hopefully they learn something from me. Yeah. And then we may never speak again.
Yeah. And I guess like you, I think what I would say is the flexibility, but I would add to that and say, because I'm a very purpose-driven person, I've set these businesses up around things that are core to me and really aligned with my values. And it took me a little bit of work in the beginning to work out what that was going to be and what that would look like. But getting that alignment around purpose has been the most enjoyable, pleasurable, amazing aspect of my work. And it doesn't mean I haven't had crisis moments. I remember about 18 months to 2 years in when I decided this was all too much, and I started looking at jobs. And then I started getting offered job interviews, and I thought, oh my God, if I keep going with this, I'm going to be offered those jobs, and I really don't want to be in that position.
So it was a good thing for you to go through.
It was. Sometimes you've got to do these things to find the answer for yourself. And what they did for me was really put a rocket under me to say, you know, if this is the choice I'm making for myself or remaking for myself, then I really need to fully get behind that decision and get going.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think people too, they need to understand that whatever business they start, it's evolving. You know, things change, morph, alter. I mean, look at the impact AI is having on general business nowadays. It wasn't having the same impact 2-3 years ago. And, you know, like we were using it in tech, but people weren't, you know, general everyday person wasn't using it. So business, no matter what it is, has to evolve. So you've got to sit back all the time and relook at it. And I want to say to people, don't wait until you've got everything tickety-boo, because by the time you do that 2-year exercise, things have moved on. Yeah. You've got to go back and you still got to validate that people want it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it's getting it out there and people engaging with you or purchasing your products, or that is really making the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a friend of mine she's been working full time, but she makes beautiful handbags. And I can see now she's got to the point with doing the markets on the weekends and a website and selling stuff online. She's got to that point, the tipping point now where but you know, yeah, she had to get to that point. And the website's not 100%. It's good. You can order. There's nothing wrong. Could be better.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop people from ordering.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And I think I really like that too. You know, I need quite a bit of encouragement to keep going. And I had a wise advisor saying to me, everything you do now is getting you closer to your objective. And it's not a linear process. And so you have to keep going and you have to keep putting things out there. And at some point there's a bit of it's a hill to climb. And at some point there's you're riding along the wave of the benefit of all of this hard work. And that's been absolutely true for me. So, keep going.
Absolutely. And women do have to realize they've got more to offer than they realize, and they've got more knowledge than they realize.
Well, I'm really interested in what the differences are for young people getting started and for when
Yes.
founders are over 50, and whether you think there's a difference?
Oh, huge. Absolutely. Look, younger ones, I sound like my grandmother. So people in their 20s, they write it up, they work out what they're going to do, they do it, they launch it, and then they worry about how it's going to work. And if they start getting sales, then they start building everything around it. They get it out there straight off. People over 50, far more conservative. And they'll wait, they'll try, they'll see. It's just going to be, and too conservative, if you ask me. I think that is the one thing that's a major difference. And the people we spoke to through Seniorpreneurs, I could see that was happening. That they were worried about getting the business out. Was it good enough? Was it going to work? A lot of them are concerned about their reputation. They feel like they've built their reputation to a certain extent. But I don't think you lose credibility by starting a business that fails. There's a speaker called Simon Sinek, and he talks often about you learn more from a failure than you ever do from a success. And he's right. I learnt more from the businesses that I tried to start and failed than the ones that succeeded. And it's a huge learning curve. You don't forget when you fail what you did wrong, and you don't do it again. Whereas you don't really look at when you've been successful and say, I'll just replicate. Oh, some people do say I'll replicate it, but most try something different, but they don't realize that even replicating what you did before is no guarantee for success.
Yeah. And it's interesting. There's some other research about intelligence and intelligences that are different for younger people and older people. And you're probably familiar with this as well. And the idea that when we're younger, our brain is going, I was trying to click my fingers on the podcast. That's not going to make a good sound, but where ideas spark, and everything's very fast paced and fast moving. And that's sort of, where those early founders, have success is, in those quick ideas, getting them out there, nimble ways of working, etc. Whereas for people over 50, it's thought of as crystallized knowledge, where we've amassed a whole range of experiences, knowledge, skills over our lifetime, where we're able to see patterns and pull things together. And so there's absolute strength in crystallized knowledge that sets us up well for business. And I think sometimes the self-talk can be about, new businesses are a young person's game, but actually
No.
You would have seen through your work. Or tell us some of the stories you saw through Seniorpreneurs around this.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing we were trying to get across in Seniorpreneurs is you need diversity. Like whatever your product or service is, the general public is diverse. And if you are a white, blonde female over 60, then I've got my ways of the things I look at, the things I do. But if I'm trying to get a product out there that is for everyone, then I need everyone's opinion. And if you go back to your crystallized and fluid intelligence, having diversity in your team and having respect, that's the one big thing. You've got to all respect each other too, because you've all got different things you're good at. And, but having that diversity in your team. So the younger, the older, the male, the female, different cultures, backgrounds, that'll give you the greatest impact on getting your business out and successful. And there's a huge amount of research about that too, to show that the companies that have actually gone out of their way to do that have been successful quicker, longer, faster. It's quite fascinating. And so I saw a lot of people who were joining up with other people. Oh, because I get on with them. We have the same thoughts, Okay, that's great, but it means your market is going to be the same person as you.
Yeah. So you mentioned AI a couple of times. How do you think AI can help in this sort of exploration and startup phase?
I love AI. So obviously, if you're going to use it for your work, you need a paid version. The unpaid versions are fine, but they're very light on. They have older research and updates and things like that. AI is a tool. Now, people we may be speaking to may remember, as I do, when calculators first came in and every maths teacher we had at school was beside themselves that we were going to become lazy and not know what we were doing because we were going to use a calculator rather than a slide rule. And it's, to me, that's the same equation. So you need to know how to use it and how to use it effectively and just not take everything it's telling you as this is accurate and right. Generally it is, but AI has been uploaded from everything else, so it has natural biases in it. So mine I call, what did I call her the other day? Christy, I think. No, it wasn't Christy. Christine something. Clara. It might have been Clara. And I said to her, listen, what you wrote is great, but it sounds like you wrote it. I said, I want you to write something that sounds like I wrote it. Within 10 seconds, I had something which was so different and so great. And the other thing is she will take you down a rabbit hole. And if you don't stop that rabbit hole in the beginning and recognizing it, you'll end up over there and you sit there after 2 days and go, what the, why am I here? I was not what I wanted. And then you've got to restart the whole conversation again. So you've got to realize there's massive limitations, but you know, it's a tool, you know, so you can, you know, if I'm doing research on what, you know, if I'm about to start something new and I want to start doing research, I'll do my own research, but then I'll go in and I'll get you know, Gemini to check and then I'll get Copilot to check. They come up with very different things. Mm-hmm. But certainly for doing research, I use them a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then I always say I want Australian validated research and I want the source listed and, you know, all that sort of stuff. If that's what I'm looking for, obviously, if you're looking for something global, then, you know, that's fine.
Yeah.
But, they're getting better all the time. I mean, it's improving exponentially.
I was going to say, I remember the first time I used AI and I asked it a question about, women over 50 and it dished me up some crap. There's really old ideas about the life of women over 50. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to take us backward in time.
Oh, absolutely.
If this is the sort of way that it's these very kind of old, outdated ideas. And obviously things have moved very quickly since then. And
very quickly.
And what do I use AI for? I use it to get that perspective getting, you know, we were talking about different generations or different others. I can call upon it to give me feedback on something or to help me phrase something that I'm struggling with. So I use it as a kind of a thought partner and a research partner, sometimes a bit of business planning partner. It's a bit of a starting point and kicks my thinking off. So as we come towards the end of this conversation, one of the things that I mentioned that the Harvard Business Review talk about is about celebrating success. And so what do you see as some of the markers of success in that early business phase that women could be thinking about?
The first time you sell a product or a service, obviously, people saying how much they appreciate what you're doing, and you can see it being, say, pushed out again in social media. So if you're doing LinkedIn posts or Facebook or whatever the, you know, TikTok, Reels, Instagram that you need to use for your product or service, that it gets pushed out again and people put testimonials up there without being asked, you know, and people contacting you to say, I'd really like to talk to you about this. And you go, whoa, someone's reading my things.
Yes. Yeah, that's really lovely. And so, you know, it's not about how much I made in the first year. It's about those much smaller, more proximal.
The small wins.
Yeah, measures of success that you can see and feel as you're going along and take in and take on board and know that you're on the right track. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So before we close, what's next for you on this landscape?
So Warren Wester Talent, we're going to be launching a product shortly. And I'm still doing things with student partnerships, like, you know, working with universities and people with small business, or it'll be not-for-profits and charities with specific types of projects. So, look, it's a tech world. I always love the tech world.
We've mentioned War on Wasted Talent, but haven't really got into it. And I'd love to have you or someone from the team back on later in the year to talk about it. Bambi, thank you so much for joining me today on the Flourish After 50 podcast and sharing your experience and your wisdom today. I know this will resonate with many women who are sitting at home with their own ideas. You've given them lots of food for thought, and I really appreciate that.
No, thank you. I've loved it. Thanks very much, Sue, and thank you for doing the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to Flourish After 50. If today's conversation resonated and you're ready to take the next step, you can work with me one-on-one as your coach, join my 6-week Life on Your Terms program, or be part of a monthly discussion group where we get deeper into some of the topics on this podcast, the Flourish After 50 Circle. You'll find the details and links at flourishafter50.com.au or in the show notes. I'd also love your support. Follow the show on your favourite podcast app, share this episode with a friend, and leave a review. It helps more women discover Flourish After 50 and start their own journey towards what's next. This episode was recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present.